Some of you got to hear Cleve last week. If you didn't, I really encourage you to go on and listen to the recording. Um, and I was listening to Cleve again this morning because he speaks for a few minutes every Friday on our coach training call. Um, and he's also a personal friend, but he said something that I want to make sure that we remember from his call last week, is that it's not that what you're doing isn't enough. It's that we are not sending out the marketing message about what you're doing. Let me give you an example. We have to be a lot better at understanding the entire process, all of us as real estate agents. So let me give you an example. Your buyer makes an offer of 400,000 over asking. Now I know for the majority of you that's not normal, but there's a lot of people on here where that is normal. Andrew, I think they're doing some of that where you are too, right? It's but even if a buyer makes an offer of 20 or 30 or 40 or $50,000 over asking, there is bound to be buyer remorse. There's, like we in California, which you don't necessarily have in a lot of other states, we have a document created by the California Association of Realtors called a market conditions advisory. And this form is basically geared to warn the buyer, hey, you are making decisions to go way over asking and no appraisal contingency and no inspection, like these are decisions you're making. Please note that they are not always, going to be the best in the future, things like that. It's kind of a warning. So we make sure of all of that. The reason I'm saying this is that one of the ladies on the call today, and then another guy chimed in, and guess what? They were the two oldest people on the call. They said, in the old days, like seriously, like in the 70s and 80s, and even in the 90s, they had this bottle that said buyer remorse pills, and it was filled with M&Ms, and they would hand them out literally to their buyers and say, listen, tomorrow morning when you wake up feeling uncertain about your oh no, she said, tonight when you go to bed feeling uncertain about your purchase, take one of these and call me in the morning. So it's that kind of thing where you're marketing a message that we are above and beyond. And again, he repeated it today and it hit me a lot stronger today. He said, it's not that you're not doing those things. You're not telling other people and marketing that you do those things, right? And they were talking about all these ideas about finding a low cost hard money lender that will, lend your people who own a home and want to buy a home money against their home for inexpensive, for like 3 months minimum, so that they can get their interest charge, so they can go buy a house confidently and non-contingent, right? All these different things that people are thinking up, and it's really about marketing the message, right? That not that, he said he showed somebody a marketing message on one of his calls, and he said like there was like 30 people and everybody raised their hand and said, I do that. And he goes, where is it written that you do that? Where can people read that you do that? He said, the only people who know that you do that are the clients you're currently working with. What about the clients you want to work with? And these are important things, right? And so obviously it's we, not all of us, we're not born. If you're born, I always say that there's nobody that's what's called a natural born salesperson, right? There might be somebody who's more natural at talking to people, but that doesn't make them a natural born salesperson. And now, when you go into a appliance store to buy a refrigerator, is the person there selling you a refrigerator? The answer is no. You're already going to buy a refrigerator. They're selling you that they get to sell it or that you'll buy it in that store. Okay? Not that they're really technically selling you a refrigerator. It's the same here, right? People, you're not bending your arm. Now, if you're a car salesman, it's a little different, right? There's a gazillion kinds of cars. Is it possible that you go into a refrigerator store and not find the kind of refrigerator you want? Yes, in today's world, you're probably not going into that store unless you already knew the kind of refrigerator you're looking for is there. It's the same with us. We are not taking people who don't want to buy a house and convincing them that they should be buying a house. That doesn't happen, right? We might market the message that hey, it's a great time to buy a house, but the people are going to decide on their own that they're going to buy something, right? Our job is to market it such that they're using us, that we're the people who get to do that. So a lot of things came out of what's happened since Cleve's talk. I have this young by young. Yes, she's young compared to me, but I'm not saying young in the sense age wise. I'm talking about young in the real estate business. She got her license 4 days before COVID in March of last year. And she was joining another real estate company, and the office closed down. So her mentorship went away, all these things went away. We met up probably, I want to say, May or June of last year, and I convinced her to come and work on my team. Like, just come on, it's all virtual anyway, but you're going to get a lot more hands on. And we ended up working together. And in her first few months, it was all relatives, but she sold 3 homes in the first few months, all daughter, sister, aunt, right? Like, but right, they were going to buy and sell from someone. But anyway, so she ended up moving down to Southern California from up here to live with her daughter while her daughter had another grandchild. And and so she called me and was all flustered. Now, some of you have heard the story, especially there's several of you on my team, but it's continuing since I told them the story. She called me on Sunday, last Sunday, so not even a week ago, very, very dejected and frustrated, had taken a part-time job uh, in the COVID industry, helping to organize and arrange vaccines, and just felt like she really wanted to tell her boss to take this job and shove it. And and just wanted to figure out how to sell more houses. So I told her, I said, okay, quit talking and go door dropping, like right away. Like, I got stern with her. And she goes, well, what do I do? What do I say? So I gave her like 3, 4 sentences to put on a flyer. She immediately on Sunday went down to Office Depot, had them print up a flyer. She stapled a bunch of business cards to them and immediately went out and spoke and door knocked and dropped at 50 houses, 50 on Sunday. And had 3 really good conversations. One of the people she had a conversation with said they were going to sell later in the year. She gets home, she goes, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait till tomorrow, because I said what I told her, what I challenged her to do is to knock or door drop 30 doors a day for 30 days in a row. How many homes is that? That's right. Your math is correct. It's 900 houses. I said, keep track of every house, every address, and do not, the 900 have to be completely different homes in the first month. And then the next month you do the exact same 900, and you do that for 3 years. 3 years. Okay. She wasn't daunted. She was like, okay, I'll do that. Right. Now, when I talked to her and she was super excited, I said, now you have to sit down and write 3 handwritten notes to the people that you spoke to. She goes, I forgot to write down the addresses where I spoke them. I said, can you remember them? And she said, yeah. So she drove out. She said, I'm going to drive back and see, because I remember where I was talking to them. Wrote the addresses down, sent the handwritten notes, right? Started a file. How many streets was I on? What addresses on the streets? Did I do the whole street? All of that stuff. Now, that sounds like a lot of work. And yes, it is, but it's work that brings you business immediately. And I got to tell you guys, there is, I saw for our company, I got an email from our company saying, hey, let me look at it real quick. I think I forwarded it to my assistant. I want to tell you the name of the class, because it was very, what's today? Today's 4/2. Let's see. Oh yeah, so the series, it was called Free Sources of Leads That Most Agents Miss. And if you're with the same company I'm with, it's next Thursday at 7 a.m. Pacific. Wow, that's early. Okay. So, and so I looked at that and I go, gosh, what a great name of a class, right? The class could suck for all we know right now, but that name of the class, like that's a class I want to hear. What am I missing? That's what it says. I'm missing something. And so the reason I say that is that there's constantly people with all these ideas about what we could do to get more. And people say, well, I'm just so confused. There's so many things I could do. Well, what happens then is you have, you know, analysis paralysis. You're so busy analyzing all the different things you could do that you're not doing anything. And the oldest saying in the coaching world is, look, everything works, nothing doesn't. Okay, so doing nothing doesn't work, but everything else does work as long as you do one or two things consistently. In the business plan workbook I showed you, we have 4 pillars of success, 4 pillars that we as coaches try to encourage people to have. Here's the one that I get most of my business with. What other 3 pillars will I get business from? Is it FSBOs and expireds? Is it internet lead generation? Is it open houses, right? My wife's a coach. She coaches a lot of agents from the company I'm with. And she teaches people to understand their story. And it was so cool because she met a guy last night. He texted me. He didn't know me, but he'd heard of me. And he said, hey, I hear your wife's, an incredible coach. I'd like to, can you introduce me to her? And she was telling me about a story. He's 27 years old, grew up in a household with his mother and dad, and they were living on a veteran's pension. It was, sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear my wife yelling in the background. It's not at me, I promise. They were living on a veteran's pension. So he learned to live very frugally and literally lived in a van for a long time. He wasn't broke. He elected to live in a van for a long time so that he could make really good money and save enough money to buy a house. This was at 23 years old, right? And today he's, like she said, he lives on $3,100 a month and has he's 27, well over $125,000 in the bank, and owns a rental property, right? Like, the story she told about him, like, it was incredible. I said, could you get him to jump on my call at 9:00? And this was last night at like midnight. We were talking, and she said, well, I have a call with him at 7 a.m. California time. And he told her, sorry, I can't jump on that call because I've already got appointments. Anyway, but I'm going to get this kid to come on because I'm always impressed. I mean, he's not a coach. He's not a speaker. He's not a trainer. I just want him to come on and share his story, his true story about how he became a real estate agent and all those things. So I'd love for you guys to get an opportunity to experience some of these things that are so inspiring to me. Even though I don't coach very many people for workmen anymore, I literally have 3 coaching clients. Like, usually they say, get out of here. But because I'm one of their first coaches, and I've been with the company the longest other than 4 other people, they let me hang around. But like listening to those coach training calls, I'm inspired as a real estate agent and as a coach. And our team is doing better as a result of those. So my point is this, my team doesn't know it, and a lot of them are on this call, but I'm looking for a date next week where we can have a call night where we're all going to call. Like, I look at this mess around me right here around my dining room table with stacks of leads and old listings that I went to interview for many years ago, and they never listed with me, but they never listed with anyone else. So this is what I want you to think about for a minute. How many people have you talked to that in your mind you say, that was so long ago, they've probably bought a house? Well, how do you know unless you ask them, right? This lady was telling me that she left Zip Realty and went to another company, and she had 5,000 old leads from Zip Realty. I go, what were you doing with them at Zip Realty? She goes, nothing. I go, but I'm going to bring them all with me to this next company. I go, what are you going to do with them then? Well, here we are. She's been with that next company 3 or 4 months, and those 5,000 leads are just sitting in a big email in her email box, right? Because somebody helped her download them and get them. And it's, in other words, she still has those 5,000 leads. She hasn't called them. But guess what? If 4,880 of them already bought a house, that would still leave another 120 people that needed help. You don't know until you call, right? Now, how do I know that these people that I went and talked to about listing never listed? Because I can look at the tax roll. The property hasn't changed hands. I can look in the MLS. It's not ever been there. So even though they're older leads and they probably interviewed 2 or 3 agents at the time, they changed their mind. Oh, we decided not to sell. So all I'm saying is we've got a lot to do. Now, one of the things I said, does anybody remember the title of the email that I sent out? What was in the subject line for today's call? Heidi, I knew you would. What was it?
Show me yours and I'll show you mine.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So what do you think I was referring to? Katie, who was one of our speakers on here, Katie Delosto, was a good friend of mine, and she's the one who said she was not referring to my Free Friday coaching calls. She was referring in general to people sending out emails, and she said, "Do you realize how important it is to have a subject line that catches people's attention? Because a lot of times that's all they read." Well, if you look back before that conversation with Katie, all of mine said the next Friday coaching call is this Friday at 9 a.m. That's all. It was like, so I said, oh, instantly we're doing something different, right? So, and of course that could have an innuendo that is maybe appropriate or not appropriate, but bottom line is I meant I want you to share with me show me what you're doing that's working, or and I'm going to tell you some things that are working for me and my team. But more importantly is, when are you going to do one of these things? When are you going to break loose? Is there anybody here, and please unmute yourself, or at least let me see your hand, that wants less business than they're currently getting? If you want less business, raise your hand. Okay. So I'm going to imagine that all of us would like to do a little more business. Now, Gina is on here and she's probably working her butt off. She's not even doesn't need to be on here, but she can tell you that there's a lot of leads that go by the wayside because I get too distracted with other stuff. And that's one of the systems we're working on. All right. So typically when you've been in business as long, well, not necessarily as long as me, but certainly in the last 10 years, I've been very on selling houses, more than I was in the whole 41 years I've been in real estate. Very focused. And so it's generating a lot of, activity and business. So for teams like that, leads aren't necessarily a problem. Systematizing and things like that are. For most individual agents, leads are usually the issue, but the biggest issue behind that is lead generation and consistency. The more I coach, the more I realize that consistency is the biggest issue going on out there, is the lack of somebody doing something. Like, I haven't talked to Janelle, the girl I was talking to you about, who did that walking around Sunday, since Tuesday. She was still pretty, hyped up, but I haven't heard a text from her, and that worries me. Like, has the consistency continued, or has it dropped off, right? So there's a lot to be said for that. What happens in a market like this that consumes all your lead generation time? You know what it is? It's showing buyers property and then trying to write them an offer, and they lose out to other listings. So that you have to keep showing the same buyer houses over and over again until you finally get them into contract. And then when you do, you take a breath of relief and go, oh, I've got another buyer. Good. Yeah, yes, because we want another transaction. But it is prioritization, guys. It is prioritization that you need. That it's like, what is going to be the most important thing that you do today? Teresa, that's on here, is like my wife. They were doing several things at once. I'm doing several things at once. I'm not just being a real estate agent. And then, so are any of them less important than the other? Absolutely not. But all of the things Teresa does require lead generation. Whether Teresa's recruiting for one thing, she recruits for two different things. I'm not going to say it's her private business, and she's a real estate agent. So when you're looking for a buyer and a seller, it's kind of the same as recruiting, right? You're trying to get people to use you or come with you. So she's basically doing the same thing, but for three different avenues. And guess what? I don't know what her days are like. We're good friends, but I'll bet you she prioritizes certain times of the day. And then when she's frustrated, I can probably lead that back to not prioritizing what's important and what's not in a day. That's what happens when we get frustrated with stuff. It's like, if I'm mad at somebody or irritated, it's only a reflection of something that I'm having trouble with myself. That's all. And learning that has really created a new zen in my life that I've never had. Right. We've never owned a home together. Later this month, we'll celebrate 13 years since our first date, and married 6.5. And now we're in contract to buy a house. And there's been so many things that have gone, and I'm not going to say they've gone wrong. They've gone differently than we expected. right? We got into escrow on January 26th. Today is April 2nd. We're not closed, right?
Who's your agent?
Yeah, right. I suck. Natalia, that is great. Yeah. So, and you know, even at one point, my wife noticed that I was fighting with the other agent on email, like it was not pretty. So she just went in the back room and called the seller directly. he goes, are you allowed to call me? And she goes, I don't know. I'm not a realtor. She goes, I would expect not, but she said the boys are fighting and we need to get this figured out. So the buyer and seller went and spoke to each other essentially, you know, and I am a buyer. I am the buyer also, but I'm also the real estate agent. So my only point is this, things are going to go differently. So my wife actually said to me, she goes, you're always talking about when you get triggered, what is it? How is it a reflection of you? And I realized this guy acted like, in my opinion, an arrogant, pompous ass. Right? Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you. After she said, what is it, what triggered you? I went and thought about it. I go, wow, how often am I being an arrogant, pompous ass to other realtors? And that's what really like backed my ass up. I was like, oh my gosh. But how is that helping or not helping my business? That's all counts. It's not whether it was a good thing or a bad thing or right or wrong. It's whether or not, is that going to continue working for you? Is it going to help you get where you want to go? So that's all of those things. I was overhearing a coaching call that my wife was doing with her business partner the other day, and they had a bunch of people on the call. I don't know how many because I stay out of that room as much as possible, but you could hear people telling stories about why they weren't doing the consistent things they needed to do to get business. But then they were explaining why and why this would happen. And I heard Casey and her partner say to these people, you know, it's one thing not to get results. It's another thing to make up a story in your head about why the results didn't come. And that story is not based in any truth. It's just what you made up and you decided. And then I heard her say this, which I've told to crowds when I've spoken to people all over the country, I've said the same thing. If you're going to make up a story, why don't you make up one with a happy ending? Right? Stories like, well, if I call them, they're going to be eating dinner and tell me not to ever call them again. Right? Really? How do you know that until you call them? You don't. So quit making up stories that have sad endings. Make up the ones that have happy endings, right? So those are the consistent things. There's another person on this call that's, you know, and there's only one page of people on this call, so I can see everybody right now. Normally when there's 2 or 3 pages, I don't know who's on, but I know for a fact this person gets tons of business just because people call and Facebook and reach out, and she's been in her community for years. And even with that, she has a high average sale price, and she does a good amount of business. But every time I talk to her, she's not saying I need to do less business. She's saying, how can I do more? Right? We're all saying that, but we don't want to do more at the expense of our service level. That's where calendaring comes in. That's where scheduling, that's where prioritization comes in. Okay. In other words, if I want to work with more sellers, which is my goal, work with more sellers, then I have to prioritize those sellers, but I also have to prioritize time to create more seller leads. Okay. The reason I say that, there's a sensitive point there between I have to prioritize time to create more sellers, but do you notice that I said there's leads that are going by the wayside? I would rather those leads go by the wayside than rush into going to get those leads that aren't anything yet, right? They're not in the hand. They're a bird in the bush, not in the hand, so to speak. And not risk how much time I need to dedicate to my existing clients so that I don't get a bad review, so that they'll refer me other people in that time. In other words, it's a lot easier to keep good clients and get them to refer you than to find a new client. Okay? It's this happy medium, you guys. Did I just say you guys? I hate saying that. I don't like when my waitress says that. I certainly don't like saying that. Anyway, but what I'm saying is it's happy medium of where do I prioritize lead generation? Where do I prioritize taking great care of the clients I have? All right. So, and this all came, I had a client that I've been working with for years, but he's never done anything. And then this year, all this year in 2021, he referred me a listing, and then he referred us a buyer. And then now it's talking about him becoming a list, like he might want to list his home and buy another one. And he said, Rick, because of the complaints that I've received about you from the people I've referred you to, I've decided to interview a bunch of other agents. Now, my team was livid for me. They're like, dump them, don't take the business, right? Because the people that he said were complaining about me, we got them the most amount of money in the history of their condominium complex, right? 2 others have closed since then, and still nobody's gotten what we got them. And that's not everything. There was a service level, not just getting them the money you hope that you could get them. But anyway, I just tried not to be defensive, and I said, okay, well, I'll take that as an opportunity to learn. But in that learning, in anytime somebody says that, there has to be some partial truths. So lots of lessons every day. And still today was supposed to be about your actions, your activities. Today's Good Friday if you celebrate. It's Friday if you don't celebrate, right? But to me, every Friday is a Good Friday because it's the day before Saturday. So, but why I say that is this: a lot of people by noon today, which it's already past that on the East Coast, they starts to calm down. Sunday is Easter Sunday. So the reason I say that is I can remember one time, and I said it on this call a couple months back, but I can remember one time, it was almost sacrilegious in my entire family. My family was raised Orthodox. My first wife's family was raised Catholic. They're very similar. The only thing I say, Orthodox priests have much bigger beards and much bigger crosses that they're carrying, right? But Catholic, the Catholic and Orthodox, very big on Easter, very big. And I remember one day that I had to go show a property on Easter Sunday. Just run out, meet them. I was in my Sunday clothes because we were going to go to church. And my wife was not happy. And then I thought she wasn't happy when she told my mom that I'd gone out to show a house on Easter Sunday. My mom, whoo, you don't want to piss off a Lebanese woman, I'll tell you that. So anyway, so it was like I never did it again. Right now, obviously the boys are grown. My parents passed away. I'm not married to the same woman anymore. So, Easter Sunday sometimes feels like just another Sunday, right? But the reason I say that is, when you need to work. You know it. You know it better than anyone, and you know when you're avoiding it. Yeah. Nobody knows it better than you. You know your bull crap stories that are, I almost swore. You know your bull crap stories about what works and what doesn't work, and keeping you from doing what you aren't doing that you'd like to do. All of us know it. We go look ourselves in the mirror, and that's why we leave the mirror so soon. Pay attention to that. How quickly do you look in the mirror and turn away? And it's not because your hair doesn't look as well as you thought it would, believe me. I remember many years of my adult life where I could not look myself in the mirror. And it wasn't because I had a pot belly either, right? It's because I didn't like who I was and what I was becoming, right? Mm-hmm. All of you here are good people, really good people with great core values, or you wouldn't be on this call, that's for sure. So what does that say about you? That means you know your demons better than anyone else. And so you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, when you're with your kids, I should be lead generating. Okay. And when your clients, you're saying, I should be with my kids, or whatever that other thing is, that other distraction. Just make it your whole thing so that when you're doing what you're doing, you're present, and that's all you're doing. it's so hard for me to do that. That's one of the most difficult things for me because I have stacks. Oh, I got to get to that stack and that stack. That stack might have clients in it. That stack might have this in it, you know. So this is the time, guys. I mean, we just finished quarter one. Well, I want my 3 quarters, my next 3 to be much better than quarter one. And quarter one wasn't too bad. It wasn't my best quarter ever, that's for sure. But quarter number 2 could be much, much better. Remember, you don't make the decision as to whether or not people are going to use you. You create the result and the marketing and the service that gets people to use you. So if they choose not to, that's out of your control. Next, who's next, right? Some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my wife's favorite sayings when she got into the network marketing industry.
Bye, honey.
It's all right. I didn't know you were leaving me, sweetheart.
You know, that's true though. That's what we say. It's like, okay, on to the next one. It's okay.
Yeah. But that's why I say, I mean, how many of you have some stack somewhere of old leads or maybe a list, or I went back into my old books. Look, Heidi's not even that long in the real estate industry and she has it. Lucky you got it. And you say, okay, if I got nothing else to do, at least I could go call some of these old leads. And what could I say? Hi, my name is Rick G. We talked many, many years ago, or we talked last year, or I met you at an open house once, right? Hope you've been well since all of this craziness started. No. So.
That's a lot of mine is pre-pandemic possible leads. It's like, oh, I should probably go back and talk to them and say, oh my gosh, we talked before the pandemic shut down and reaching out to you again, something like that.
Yes, absolutely, Heidi. Very well said. You know, and you don't know what's gone on for them. Probably, maybe some of them got caught up in the frenzy and did go out and buy or sell. But about a lot of them just tucked their head and shut the door and looked, you know, hit the bunker, you know, and that's what we said. We've been noticing 25 to 35% of the people have no idea what's going on out there. We just think everybody does, but they don't, right? I had to I got my first vaccine yesterday, right? It was 80 something degrees out. And I read in the small print, it said, do not, I'd never seen something to do with a shot, a doctor, anything that didn't say arrive early. This said, do not arrive earlier than 10 minutes before your appointment, right? And I'm in a suit, a full suit, no tie. Everybody else is in shorts and masks. Why did I do that? My wife asked me that when I got back. She goes, you were in shorts, you got into a suit, went to get your shot and came back and got out of your suit and got back into shorts.
To look professional?
Exactly. I said, I have no idea who I'm going to meet there. I want to be the best looking realtor there. And she goes, how do you know how many realtors will be there? I go, I'm hoping I'm the only one. But there was 1,400 people there at the same time I was. Right? I struck up a couple of conversations, but people didn't really seem to want to talk.
What location were you at?
I was at Diablo Valley College in Pleasant Hill. Because in Contra Costa, starting yesterday, Contra Costa County, it's 16 and over, 16 years old and over can have vaccines. That will hit the rest of our counties here as of April 15. But last week they opened up 50 and over because I'm under 65, but well over 50. So anyway, I got booked. So the reason I said that is I'm always looking for an opportunity to talk to somebody and hopefully, you know, it's like those girls I told you about. I told you all about the girls from Minnesota who basically go into Costco and hang around the jewelry and electronics section because that's where they found that people stand around the most. In the jewelry section, looking at jewelry, and in the electronics section, looking at TVs and stuff. And then they just start up a conversation. You know, I don't know much about TVs. What makes that one special? You know, they'll do that kind of stuff. And that's it. They start a conversation. Oh, what's your name? How is it possible that you could be in Costco in the middle of the day? Do you work from home? You know, or stuff like that. Anything to start a conversation. So there's no way, there's nothing that doesn't work if you just give it a chance. And then if you have to, like someone said, oh, I've knocked on doors for years, never got a lead. Well, I said, well, I can tell you, that if you've knocked on doors for years and you're not lying and have really knocked on a lot of doors, then you're probably only going to need to tweak what you're saying when they open the door. Right? I don't know what he's saying. I mean, I told many people a story about a kid that worked with me the first time I became a manager in 1993. And he said he went out door knocking and he said he knocked on 150 doors and nobody would even talk to him. And I said, okay, step outside my office door and knock on my door. I'm going to pretend I'm at home and open the door and you do what you do. So he literally did. He knocked on the door of my office. I opened the door and I go, hi, how can I help you? And he said, you're not thinking of selling your house at all, are you? I'm like, that's what you've been saying? I slammed the door in his face. I'm like, if that's what you're saying, you're basically trying to convince people not to sell their house. And I did it on this call many years ago. I don't know if I've mentioned her lately, but she's not in real estate, but she was literally 5'2", tiny, blonde, blue eyes. And she'd knock on a door. And as soon as someone would answer, she'd go, I'm not selling anything, like that. I go, if I did that, somebody'd get a gun and shoot me. I swear it. But for her, it was adorable. People loved it. And people would just talk to her. She could generate leads like nobody's business, but she ended up hating real estate. So for a long time, all she did was lead generate for another team and gave them all the business and took referral fees. And she'd make about 100 grand a year working 12 hours a week. 12 hours a week. She'd lead generate like a mother, hand all the leads to the team, go home. So she'd work 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. That's what she did. And she lead generated like crazy. If she didn't come in the office, that meant she was out door knocking. So she'd leave messages on cold calls and people would call her back. That's how engaging she was. Who calls people back on a cold call? Right? If you got home and some person you didn't know was saying, hi, my name's John. I'm a real estate agent. Love to talk to you about selling your home. You don't know John from Adam and you're not thinking of selling your home. Those people would pick up the phone and call it. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Just go out there, please. I'm begging you. Because we can all become much, much more in the direction of where we want to end up. I like to say the word successful because each of you decide what success is. And for me, success is more time not working. Okay? What is it for you? Right? You want to fund something, you want to put money aside for your kids' college. What is it that you need to fund? What I need to fund is less time working, more time not working. Okay? So, all right, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about what I've said, ask any questions you might have. We will be sending this recording out. And if you have any suggestions, please, when you get the recording, please email me back because my assistant and I both get those and say, Rick, you should do this more on the call, or you should do less of this, or invite this person. Anything, we're always open. If you know somebody that you think would be a great guest speaker on the call, we don't have like a list of stuff that you have to do. We just ask you not to recruit, not to sell anything. That's all. Well, you as a speaker can sell something, but that's it. So if you got somebody, let me know. I think, Lucky, I was thinking of trying to convince Bonnie to get on the call sometime, but.
I think Amanda was trying to also we do need to get Bonnie on board, and I'll give her a call. I'm going to be talking to her on Monday, or rather she's going to be talking to me.
Well,
I'm in trouble, so.
Tell her Rick said hi and ask her about that.
Yes, I will definitely talk to her about it. I just wanted to tell you something, because you were talking about, remember the gentleman who was there, thank you note person?
Oh yeah, that we gave you the link to the class. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
this John Israel or something? Or?
Yes. Yeah. He had an Arabic name, I thought. I can't remember.
Like
Yeah. But anyway, but what I started doing was going way back to 1992 and sending out postcards to those people. Started out with, so many have moved, some have died and everything, but you cannot believe 3 of them called me and I thought, oh, wow. And I said, Lucky, we haven't talked to you in such a long time, and I thought, shame on me.
That's awesome. That's a good story. Thank you.
Yeah, I continue to do that, every day, starting from way back. moving forward, so
Good.
it's a good feeling now,
Yeah.
to know that people still remember this, so I mean they do, because they say we do get your card with the magnet every year, so it's still on my refrigerator.
That's nice.
So,
Good. Thank you. I'm glad that did some good. I'm trying to get that guy, not the speaker, but Hunter, the guy that
Yes.
does. I'm trying to get him to come back on also. He's a very busy guy. So
Yes, yes. But that was an awesome, and last week was absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
that's good. Yeah. I want Cleve. I wish Cleve could come on more often, but he's also crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. I'm gonna, if you guys ever, I don't know. I've never tried to Google his name on YouTube or anything and see if he has YouTubes, because he's, like I said, he's a friend of mine, but I haven't had a chance to figure out if that's, if he's got anything out there, but I'd sure, he's definitely the kind of guy I like to listen to a lot. So. All right. Well, I love you guys. Have a great Easter weekend. If you don't celebrate, have a great weekend anyway, because it's going to be beautiful in very many parts of the Western United States.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You do the same. Happy Easter to you and your family. Okay.
Natalia, I'll be in touch, sweetheart. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody. Yeah.